Speaking of where you're from, you are originally from up north as well, Minnesota, right?
Minnesota, yeah.
Born in Minnesota. Mm-hmm.
Born in Fridley, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Which is a suburb of St. Paul, and I think we moved before I was a year old. So
right.
I didn't really live up there for very long.
So where did you move to? Was it to Texas?
We moved from Minnesota. We went to Illinois and then Nebraska.
Huh.
And then we landed in Burleson, Texas, which is a suburb of Fort Worth.
Right.
And then Amarillo, Texas, which is where I finished high school and did a couple years of college. And then I did some college up in Montana, and then moved back to Amarillo, and that's where I started playing music, like as a job. And then I was in a band called the Groobies, and when the Groobies disbanded, I moved down to Wimberley and that was in 2003.
And that's where you're at now. Yeah. So
my dad worked for Burlington Northern Railroad, so all those moves were.
I was going to say, they were
his
probably
job
getting
transferred.
I love looking at people's kind of their genesis story, right? Like, and yours is so apropos because you're a road warrior. You travel all the time, and obviously it's your storytelling and all of that drives that. But
yeah, thank you.
How much of that was kind of born from being that way when you were a kid?
Oh, I'd say 96% of it. Because I think about this a lot when I'm, some of my best times in my life. I've had a blessed, fortunate, touched life of having good parents who prioritized raising kids, and my dad was just a solid guy, and my mom was a room mother and just good. I was just lucky, and some of the best times that I remember were car trips with my folks.
Yeah.
And we would go from wherever we lived at the time up to Missoula, Montana, where my dad was from.
Okay.
And we have a place up there, and that's where our summer vacation would happen. So no matter where we lived, we'd never lived in
Montana. Of course, summer in Montana is like winter in Texas.
It's so beautiful, yeah. But we never lived there.
Yeah.
And so I didn't live there until was going to college up there.
Yeah.
But we would go there every summer, so we'd have these long road trips to get from wherever we were. And there is an element of that, like a romantic element of that, of having the security of having dad doing the driving and mom making the snacks and saying, hey, kids, we're playing the license plate game. There's something about that has found its way.
Agree. And I feel like life experiences kind of prepare you for what's next, so to speak.
No
right?
doubt.
Like for me, I've been a professional wrestler. I've been a karaoke host. Yeah.
I was going to say no shit.
Yeah.
But can you say
that? No, you
that?
can say that, yeah.
Okay,
you
no
say
shit.
whatever you want, yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah, and that led me, I spent 4 years streaming video games online. And it was that professional wrestling persona that made me money doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I feel
you did that for your living?
For streaming, for 4 years. Yeah.
Wow.
I was making a couple $1,000s a month doing that for a
Wow.
while until COVID. And then, disposable money kind of dried up.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I just, again, I feel like every life experience that kind of stops in your doorway is preparing you for something that you don't even know you're going to do someday.
Did you hear that, Jen? She's not paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
She'll have to watch it back.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I had a period of time, like from 3rd to 6th grade, that I was a huge wrestling fan.
Okay.
And Texas, the Von Erich family, there's a movie about him now, but when I was in the 6th grade, we did my 6th grade birthday party at the Texas Walk of Champions, where I had me and about 4 of my friends.
Nice.
And we got to see the great Kabuki wrestle.
Nice.
And the Von Erichs put the claw
See, I
on.
grew up on them, and I wasn't from Texas.
Oh, yeah.
But in Massachusetts, Saturday morning was world-class championship
totally.
wrestling.
Yeah.
Every Saturday morning.
Yep.
And my dad only had weekends off. So that was our time together, like Saturday morning.
Yep.
And it was the one day I could sleep in, and I didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Because I wanted to hang out with my dad, and that was my only chance to do that. So Iceman Parsons and Gentleman Chris Adams and all of those guys from Texas, like they were, bigger.
Gentleman Chris Adams was also the British Bulldog, right?
That
was a different
guys. Yeah.
Gentleman Chris Adams. Okay, so when we lived in Burleson, there was a like a circuit that they came to the high school.
Right.
And Gentleman Chris Adams came to to Burleson, Texas to wrestle, and I had the program, and I was going to get his signature, so I ran up to the thing and I got his signature on my program, and then I was running back to our seats, and there was some Skittles on the floor or something, and I just went, whoop,
Oh my
and
God.
just took out these folding chairs, and I was like on the floor going, I got it, I
Guys,
got it.
We haven't even asked her about her embarrassing moments yet. She's already telling us about them.
Oh, I wasn't embarrassed about
That's
that.
great stuff. Let's get back to the parental growing up.
Okay.
What are some lessons you learned from your folks that you
Oh,
still apply
jeez.
today?
Oh, anything car maintenance. My dad, when everything was going to shit and I couldn't seem to keep it together at all, I was still getting regular oil changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was, I wasn't probably brushing my teeth and combing my hair, but I was still getting regular oil changes. So that is something. My dad was a real belt and suspenders kind of guy,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean by that.
Of course.
And that if you stuck your head in our van, you would see that I feel prepared for any contingency.
Yeah.
And I think that's my dad. He was a talk to anybody kind of guy.
Yeah, that was my dad too.
And then
Gabaholic.
Yeah. But then when at home he was kind of quiet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think he had this kind of interesting.
It's called ambiverted.
Yeah. And I feel that too.
I do too.
I love this and I love that. But when I'm, Jen and I drove here. She and I have been friends since the late 1900s, and we have long silences sometimes. And that's comfortable. I can
Of
do that with
course.
people that I'm comfortable with. From my mom, oh my gosh. Well, she was the music in our family, and she made everything fun.
Yeah.
She was an elementary school teacher, and so she could manipulate us and get us to do anything by just couching it in the form of a game.
That's smart.
And so we would play cards for jobs, and we'd play like 31 or some kind of game that goes really fast, and then if you lost, you had to put your name by a chore, and if you won, you didn't have to. And
Golly, where was your mom when I was
yeah,
raising kids?
she was great.
That's smart.
Yeah, she was really good. She could just make anything fun.
Yeah.
And I think part of my tendency to be sentimentally attached to things might come from my mom.
Yeah.
That in a lot when your life is moving all the time, and your stuff is your home.
Yeah.
Then sometimes you get really, really super attached to stuff.
I love that because, like in your music, there's a lot of emotion in your storytelling, but it's not always negative emotions.
Oh, I hope not. Yeah.
There's a lot of joy in your lyrics and your
Oh,
melodies.
I hope so.
And I think that probably comes from your mom then, huh?
Yeah, she was a pretty joyful person. She was really funny, and I think I had two parents that had good senses of humor in different ways. But yeah, she was definitely, I would say she is a silver lining person. And maybe that was a product of raising kids where you are breaking the news that, hey, I know you've just made friends here, but we're moving again, Like she could spin anything.
Yeah.
And by the time at
optimist.
the end of the conversation, you're like, okay, I guess it's going to be awesome, you know? So
Well, there was no other choice, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Make the best of it.
Make the best of it.
Great stuff. So music, your mom was the impetus for that. So what was what's the first thing you remember music related?
Well, I remember sitting on the piano bench next to my mom, and I was her page turner.
Okay.
She played piano, and she was a piano teacher casually.
So just a natural teacher.
She was a natural teacher. Yeah, that totally. That was the thread that ran through everything she did.
Yeah.
Was a teacher. And so she played the piano in the home. She loved to harmonize. And so when we'd have these epic road trips, you know, it'd be July 12th, and we'd be singing Christmas carols
songs,
because
yeah.
everybody knows the words and we could
Yeah.
harmonize to it, or Beach Boys songs or whatever. So that was all my mom. I think she is the one that encouraged, you know, I was in choir my whole life, church choir, school choir. I started playing the violin in like the 5th grade or whenever they introduced that in school, and she was really supportive of that. And I mean, we'd be having to wash dishes, and at our cabin we don't have running water, and so you haul the water in a bucket, heat it on the
This
stove.
was in Montana, right?
In Montana, yeah. And so we'd be washing dishes, and we'd play Name That Tune. I can name that tune in 6 notes.
6 notes.
You know, and so she put it in our life, you
Yeah.
know. And then, you know, playing as a person that wasn't making any money making music, she supported that. And, you know, if she had, and I think my dad was more vocal about, like, you know, you're not going to have any job security if you don't finish school and find a career.
The realist.
The realist.
Yeah.
But if my mom had any of that fear, like, she didn't tell me about it,
Yeah.
you know.
No, because she was the optimist.
She was the optimist.
You have to
yeah.
have that balance in
Yeah.
a relationship.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, totally.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.